how wonderful it is to initiate the Global Specialty Lens Symposium with the very timely and popular topic of myopia management. This session is presented by no less than two of our GSLS Award of Excellence recipients, Drs. Jeff Wallace and Pauline Cho, international myopia icon Kate Gifford, ably assisted by experts Ashley Wallace-Tucker and Sally Dillahan. In this session, you'll learn not only what are the common methods of myopia management, but to whom and to when should you use a specific modality. We'll look forward to seeing you at Myopia Control Treatment Showdown.
It's really our place where education happens as well. So thank you to all our sponsors and exhibitors. I'd also like to thank the Panavision Conference or Meetings Group, in particular, Maureen Trusky, Laura Shepard or Laura Flynn, and Christy Berry. There are a whole host of people behind the scenes as well who help make these meetings happen from Panavision, and so I want to thank each and every one of them. In fact, these last few weeks, as you imagine, have been kind of a lot to manage in terms of the schedule and things alike, so thank you to the entire Panavision Meetings Group. This year we have a lot in store. As I said, we have over 40 sponsors, 20 plus medal level sponsors, 25 exhibitors. We have 34 speakers. We've had over 400 registered for this meeting, which has been incredible. We really appreciate all of you attending the meeting. We've really done quite well in this regard, given the current state of affairs with Omicron and COVID and the like. So we really appreciate your active engagement in the meeting. We have over 20 countries involved in the meeting this year, and we have 17 hours of continuing education co-approved, which is a mix of general sessions, our breakout sessions, and our workshops, our clinical workshops. So we're really excited to bring all of these to you. Before I get too far along, I'd like to also make you aware of two other events we're going to be hosting in 2022. The first is June 9th through 11th. This year, 2022, which is our Global Specialty Lens virtual meeting. It will be held virtually. It's a mini GSLS in which we'll engage various parts of the world as it relates to specialty lenses in particular. So we've got a session planned with a group from Latin America. We've got a session planned co-hosted with a group from Europe. And we have another session planned with a group from Asia. So this truly will be a global event that we'll hold in June of this year. The second meeting that I'd like to make you aware of is the Global Myopia Symposium, which is a meeting we launched 2 years ago. The Global Myopia Symposium will be held September 9th through 11th of 2022. And this really is a world premiere meeting in myopia. Right now we actually have a call for courses open where we're looking for 1-hour educational courses or 2-hour workshops. And we really encourage everybody to submit actively as it relates to engaging the entire community in terms of our bringing myopia education really around the world. So I want to make you aware of the virtual GSLS and the Global Myopia Symposium to be held later this year. A few housekeeping notes. As I mentioned before, as you can imagine, the last few weeks have been kind of all over the place in terms of a roller coaster in managing the meeting and the number of people who've had to sort of cancel or adjust their schedules and the like. So the first thing I'd like to do is to make sure that you have downloaded the Panavision Conferences app. You can see a picture of it there. In large part, the course handbook, which was printed over a month ago, is somewhat out of date, in particular as it relates to room assignments. So the app has the current room assignments for many of the meetings, the breakouts, and the like. The other thing is, within the app, there are two other features. Number one is that there's an interactive sort of session that allows you to engage the speakers, the moderators as such. And I know in the first general session, Dr. Wallace will be monitoring it as it relates to question and answers and maybe even a little polling, if I'm not mistaken. So another important reason to download the Panavision Conferences app so that you can engage in the polling, but also as it relates to questions and answers. The other thing I want to remind you is to make sure that you get scanned in for your CE. In fact, I forgot to do that this morning myself, so make sure you get scanned in. We'll be mailing, or probably emailing credits out or your transcripts out in a week or two following the meeting. The other thing, again, I want to remind you of are the exhibit halls, which will open this night. Our inaugural opening the exhibits will be this evening. Really encourage you to go and engage with the exhibitors, and really it is a place where education happens at this meeting as well. And the last thing is just a reminder about COVID-19 and the continued masking indoors and the like, et cetera, and just be mindful of that. The hotel has monitors that are sort of floating around to make sure that we're being compliant with masking and regulations and the like. So just a brief reminder about that. Now this morning we've got a tremendous 2 sessions planned, in fact. The first session, which I'll hand over to Dr. Wallace in just a moment, is myopia and the treatment showdown. He will engage, as you'll see, speakers from around the globe as it relates to understanding the best sort of scenarios and treatment options we have for our patients. And our next session will be Lynette Johns, and she'll be engaged as it relates to specialty lenses and what makes lenses specialty along these lines. So with that, again, welcome to the Global Specialty Lens Symposium, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Wallace to take things to the next step in the general session.
Thank you very much, Jason. This morning, I'm going to moderate a session called Treatment Showdown. What myopia control option would you choose? My name is Jeff Wallace, and this is going to be a session that includes people from around the world. So we've got people from Australia, from China, and from the table right up here. And I did want to comment really quickly. I think this is a much better looking crowd when wearing masks. No, I'm just kidding, because I actually can't see a thing. I think my retinas are being singed by those lights back there. But we do appreciate you coming to this meeting, because we know it's a sacrifice. We know the world's a little bit scary right now. So we really do appreciate you coming. As Jason said, we do want you to download the Pentavision Conferences app. If you're on an Android, you can go to Google Play. If you're on an Apple, you can go to the App Store. Download this Pentavision Conferences. We're going to use it for 2 different things during this session. Once you download the app and you get into the app, you'll see on the bottom left, there's actually a icon that says polling on it. On that polling, after each of the cases that we are going to present, you will have the chance to tell us which treatment you would actually choose for that particular patient. And we want your feedback on that, because it's going to it all plays into the actual theme of this session. So if you could please vote on each one of those, but only vote on each case as they are presented. So don't go through and vote on all 7 of the cases. Wait until each one is presented, then make your vote. Otherwise, it just won't make any sense at all. And the second thing is, the way we are actually going to conduct Q&A is through the app also. So there's a Q&A icon on the app. If you would type your questions into that section, then I will ask the questions at the end. So all questions will be conducted after we present our 7 cases. The way we're going to present these 7 cases is it's just a short snippet about the particular patient. And these 7 patients are patients that you literally treat with myopia control on a daily basis in your practice. So they're not the weird cases, they're the straightforward cases that you do on a regular basis. Then we have 4 presenters who I'll introduce in just a moment. We're going to advocate for each of their treatments. The 4 treatments that we're going to advocate for are multifocal contact lenses. And when I say multifocal contact lenses, I mean that in a generic term, where the contact lenses produce more than one focal point. We're also going to talk about orthokeratology. We're going to talk about low concentration atropine, and we're going to talk about myopia control spectacles, which are special spectacles that aren't yet available in the US, but they are available throughout the world. So I think it'll be nice for you to hear a little bit about them. And hopefully that'll be an option in the not too horribly distant future. And those spectacles are actually very unique in that, and so I'm just going to provide a little background because we don't have time to do it during the presentation. Those spectacles have little 1 millimeter lenslets with an add power in those little lenslets. In the center of the lens is corrected for distance. Those little lenses are throughout the mid-periphery of the lens. And the theory is that they add myopic focus to the eye so that you get slowing the myopia progression. As I said, they are not yet available in the United States. So with that, I think we're going to get started. Our first speaker that I'm going to introduce is Ashley Wallace Tucker. and she will be advocating for orthokeratology contact lenses. She received her optometry degree from the University of Houston and her BS degree from the University of Florida. She owns a private practice called Bel Air Family Eye Care, and in that practice they have the Contact Lens Institute of Houston. She's also an adjunct faculty member at the University of Houston College of Optometry. Advocating for myopia control spectacles is ironically a queen of orthokeratology, that's Pauline Cho. But she was formerly housed at Polytechnic University, Hong Kong Polytechnic University, where one of those special spectacles was actually invented. So she will be actually advocating for spectacle use. She received her Bachelor of Optometry degree at the University of New South Wales in Australia, and then went all the way across the world to the University of Bradford, where she earned her PhD, and she is now at the Hospital of Fudan University. Kate Gifford received her Bachelor of Science in Optometry and her PhD from Queensland University of Technology. She's now a private practice owner in a practice that she's been in since 2003. She was previously the national president of optometry in Australia and the chair of the International Myopia Institute Clinical Management Guidelines Committee. And you mostly know her as the co-founder of Myopia Profile, a great resource for both doctors and patients in terms of myopia control and myopia management. And she will be speaking about, soft multifocal contact lenses. And then Sally Dillahay will be talking about low concentration atrophy. She received her optometry degree and her master's degree from the Ohio State University College of Optometry, and she received her doctorate in education from Nova Southeastern University. She's now the president of Clinical Trial Solutions and has spoken in 6 of 7 continents. Apparently they don't have much of a need for myopia control in Antarctica. Don't know why that is. But I want to provide you with just a little bit of background. So if you take a look at the slide on your screen, I'm going to make a few points from this slide. One of the things I want you to note is if you look here, you can see that this is myopia progression on the right side, eye growth on the left side. One of the things that optometrists are just now getting used to is what does eye growth really mean? What's a 1/10 of a millimeter of eye growth equal to? So I want to give you a couple of round numbers that aren't always the same. They change through as a patient ages, but a good number for you to keep in mind is that 1/4 of a diopter of myopia progression is equal to about 1/10 of a millimeter of eye growth. So a nice number to keep in mind. We know that average myopia progression in the US is about 1/2 diopter, so that equals about 2/10 of a millimeter of eye growth. So good things to keep in mind. And then this is just my look at the literature where I've limited it to just those 4 methods of myopia control that we're going to talk about today. You can see in the bars presented here, the average difference between soft multifocal contact lenses and single vision contact lenses or glasses in terms of myopia progression presented in the dark bars and eye growth presented in the little dots. So if you look at multifocal contact lenses, they actually slow myopia progression by about 1/3 of a diopter, and they slow eye growth by about 0.15 millimeters. One thing that you can just, I think, sort of take or just delete from this slide basically is myopia progression measured with orthokeratology, because as you know, we are temporarily getting rid of refractor. So we really can't measure differences in myopia progression with that. So just concentrate on the eye growth with orthokeratology. But let's look at the biggest sort of difference here. The biggest difference is really between orthokeratology and low concentration atropine. And that's on the order of about 0.15 millimeters. That's about 0.37 diopters. So really, each of these 4 clinical measures doesn't provide all that much of a clinically meaningful difference. So they're all effective for myopia control. And more importantly, the patient that's in your chair, you can not predict which of these 4 methods is actually the best one for that particular patient. So I think that's why this makes this particular presentation very important, because it's going to present to you the options that you have available and sort of some ideas you should use to determine which is the best treatment for that patient. So with that little bit of background, we're going to get started with our case presentations. Our first case is a 2-year-old male with about 3 diopters of spherical myopia and also spherical Ks. So this is one that I think we would basically consider to be medically necessary, and the reason we say that is that the amount of myopia, 3 diopters, is actually greater than the age of the patient. When that's the case, we generally think of it as medically necessary. So this is a patient that we really might want to get into myopia control. So what our 4 presenters are going to do now is they each have 1 slide and 1 minute to advocate for their own treatment option. So they're going to try and convince you that that's the best one for that patient. It may be difficult in some cases to advocate for a particular treatment, but they're going to do the best they can. At the end of those 4 one-minute presentations, you are going to vote as to which one you think would be best for that particular patient. So our first presenter will be Ashley, who will be talking about orthokeratology. Ashley, why don't you go ahead and take it away.
All right, so we all agree looking at this patient that treatment is imperative. So I'm advocating for orthokeratology at first, and I was like, oh man, a 2-year-old, but it needs to be done. So the reason why I think Ortho-K would be the best for this patient, that's loud. The parents are going to be looking for something that is hands-off for the patient himself. The orthokeratology lens itself will provide myopic defocus to the eye all day long, regardless of whether the patient is wearing spectacles properly or even at all, or wearing soft contact lenses. We know a 2-year-old with something that needs to be consistent throughout the day that is not done at night is going to be nearly impossible. I would imagine that this child will go through multiple pairs of glasses, and if the child will even keep them on, that's going to be a really big challenge in that regard. No need to worry about daytime contact lens irritants if we have orthokeratology done completely at night. So I think the biggest factor here is that the parents will likely want something that they'll be in complete control of, whether it be the insertion, the removal, the care for the lenses. Orthokeratology is going to be the best in that case.
Perfect, thank you very much. And you can see that on the top of each slide, I've got a countdown clock so they know when their 1 minute is up. And they always do a great job of keeping up with this. So Sally, I think you're going to talk about atropine.
Yes, and thank you, Jeff, for giving me the first case being a slam dunk. Michael Jordan kind of slam dunk. He actually set it up for me. This is a medically necessary case. We have a very young child with a very high prescription. You noticed in the picture his dad was wearing glasses, so there's parental myopia, very high risk. And so Jeff said for low dose atropine, we could go as high as 0.1%. I think this is a case where you've got to go with everything you give it. Now, with that said, I would be working with the child's pediatrician. There have been adverse events with atropine in special needs children and children under 3 years old. So I don't take this cavalierly that we would just throw a drug on him. We would also be looking for any genetic disorders as well, but you're not going to get a contact lens in a 2-year-old. I don't want patients and parents struggling with kids with Ortho-K. Sorry, Ashley, or soft contact lenses. Atropine's the only way.
That sounds like a challenge I'd like to meet. Our next person will be Kate, talking about soft contact lenses. Kate's coming to us all the way from Australia.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks very much. For each of these cases, I've decided to put a little balance there. So I think you can fairly easily see what the positives and the negatives are. For this particular case, this child needs full-time vision correction for visual development as well as for myopia control, and contact lenses offer that, as well as parents having the ability to have full control and oversight over the process. With minimal astigmatism, this is a fairly easy fit, but it's not an easy fit because of the child's age, and as you can see, we have complications there in terms of parental ability to apply the lenses and handling. We also don't have any data on efficacy at this age, but that's also true for any of these treatments. We don't have data on efficacy in 2-year-olds. What I did also just want to highlight is that in children at 2 years of age, we should actually undercorrect a little bit, even though that's not what we should do for older children, to allow for emmetropization. So soft contact lenses are an option for this child. Perhaps there are more simple ones, but that's the balance, I think, for this particular case.
Perfect, thank you, Kate. And our last arguer on this particular case is Pauline Cho, talking about myopia control spectacles. Pauline.
Yes, well, the child is only 2 years old and already has moderate myopia. Studies have shown that myopia progresses fastest when they were young, when the children are young. Beams has been shown to be effective in slowing exit illumination. They are very easy for ECPs to prescribe, easy for the child to get used to. And usually they don't need the child to adapt for any, to the wearing time, etc. They are also easy and fast to replace in case of damage or loss. And it is also comparatively less expensive than the other options. They are actually safer as there is no issue with overwear or napping, which is a concern with soft contact lens. Non-compliance with care procedures, and there's no adverse effects such as irritation or dryness towards the end of the day, or ocular complications from contact lenses, overcare or atrophy use, etc. And with glasses, there is also reduced risk or chance of touching or rubbing the eyes due to irritation or itchiness during the lens wear. There is also no need for daily maintenance and care, which, if required, will require strong commitments from parents, as the child is only 2 years old, and hence the heavy parental responsibility to ensure strict compliance with use and care. And in the case of atropine, well, the therapy will probably require over 10 years of application of the drugs. So I strongly advocate for DIMS for this particular patient.
Thank you, Pauline. So now you've heard the pros and cons sort of each one of these various treatments. If you could open up your app to the poll.